All right, there's just 5 things that I want you to check before you sign. It'll only take less than an hour in most situations, and it could save you thousands and thousands of dollars. Hey guys, if we haven't met, my name is Mitch and I cover all things personal finance, particularly those that affect the average Australian's back pocket. And as with all of my content, guys, none of this is in any way personal advice for you and your circumstances. It is purely education and entertainment purposes that I create this for you guys. And although these things are very important for each individual, it is even more important for you to go and get some advice from a trusted professional, particularly when it comes to 1, buying a vehicle, and 2, buying it with a product such as a novated lease, which can be highly complex. All right, with all that out of the way, guys, let's get stuck into it. Number 1, it's the biggest one, and I talk about it the most. It is making sure that you find the interest rate on your novated lease quote. And for those of you who are entertaining getting one of these right now, or you're going through the quotes, I challenge you to pick up that document and find on there where you can see a interest rate. Now, the funny thing is I deal with people day in, day out, and a very common question when it comes to someone arranging finance is, what is the interest rate? What's your interest rate? What's the best interest rate you can do? And that's completely fair. Obviously, lower interest means you're paying less. But at the end of the day, these novated lease products are not regulated like a normal consumer loan product. And therefore, a lot of providers will take the path of not showing you the interest rate unless they are pushed or unless they are one of the more transparent few. And that might surprise quite a few people. Obviously, like I say, a lot of importance is placed on this normally. But for some reason, when it comes to a novated lease, people often just forget the fact that it is a finance product, and they don't remember to go and check all the things such as the fees and the interest rate, everything like that they would normally do when it comes to taking out normal car finance with their bank, a broker, a car dealership. So those things are equally as important when it comes to the lease. Now, the reason I think a lot of people do miss this is because they get very caught up in the very nicely presented quotes that have large saving numbers. They've got highlighted areas in different colors that will draw your eye to the big savings, the tax breaks that you're going to get, and all that extra money that's going to be in your pay packet each fortnight because you're using salary packaging. Now, how do you find it yourself? Well, number 1, you can just ask the provider. So hopefully they're transparent enough to say, yep, look, we don't actually have them on our quote as we're not required to do so, but here it is. The other way is you can actually back calculate it. So just like any other normal finance, you would be able to find on your quote sheet the fixed rental payment and use this to extrapolate the data out and find out what the actual interest rate is, because you've got everything. Effectively, you're going to have the residual figure, you're going to have the fortnightly repayment, the monthly fee or the fortnightly fee if there is one. The only thing going to be missing in there would be the rate. So plug in the term, plug in the balloon, and then back calculate that repayment. I've got another video which I do walk through this. I discovered in a quote a 13% interest rate, and this person was a homeowner. They were earning close to $200,000 a year, a very astute person, but they were none the wiser to the fact that their rate was at 13%. And this is the longest point and the most important. The reason is it's not just a matter of, well, I'm going to save the tax anyway, because the reality is every dollar you spend, you're not getting that back dollar for dollar. You're still spending an extra amount of money and making a small tax saving on that. But at the end of the day, if you can get a lower rate, you're still going to be having a much better time with your novated lease. And in fact, if you don't actually make sure you get a decent interest rate, then it makes the novated lease way less attractive. And if you just go and hand that back through interest charges, then it really does defeat the purpose of doing this. And you might be better off just to buy a different sort of vehicle with a normal loan product at a very low interest rate through your bank, credit union, or finance broker. So to close on that point, guys, always find the rate. Now, point number 2 is check your vehicle and its eligibility for different discounts when it comes to novated leasing. Only EVs, so full battery electric vehicles, are eligible for the significant advantages gained through the fact that their employer doesn't need to pay FBT on these vehicles. And because of this, every single dollar for the running costs and the lease repayment are all taken out of your pre-tax pay. And that is the biggest benefit of these novated leases. Now, there is a couple of caveats here. If you're doing anything such as a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid, these vehicles are not eligible. They're just treated like a normal ICE vehicle and just subject to the standard novated lease terms, which don't really offer any discounts aside from the small pre-tax savings that you can get through these. You can operate it and usually do whatever you want in it, but there are some fairly strong terms and conditions when it comes to a novated lease, and those are the things that you need to be aware of depending on the provider of it. Now, some real points that people can get caught up in are your employer provides this as a benefit to you, but if you then take out, say, a 5-year lease and swap your employer way through, you need to ensure that the next employer can happily take that agreement on for you and continue with the same benefits, or you're going to be left paying for a vehicle which is not getting the same benefits you were otherwise getting with your previous employer. So if you're taking out these long-term leases, understand what you're signing, because 5 years is a long time, and people who are climbing the corporate ladder, oftentimes, you might be switching your employers more regularly. So keep that in mind. If that is you, maybe consider the shorter term. So sometimes they'll put attractive figures in front of you, like a 4 or a 5 year term, because it's cheaper, but maybe consider the shorter term leases, so the 2 or the 3 year options instead. And obviously that might be more attractive to you, give you a little bit more flexibility, or have you less likely to get caught up in an issue where you can't transfer the product. And on that, just always know that with a novated lease, there's no equity on the way in. You can't put deposit in. At the end, you have the residual figure, which you are liable for, and you're liable to pay the GST for. So understand what that means for you and ensure that it is disclosed to you. Some people might not understand exactly what that is. They might see low repayments and think, how good is this? The repayments are so low, I get this car. But understand the reality of it is at the end of the loan, you're going to have quite a large percentage of the vehicle, depending on the loan term you choose, still outstanding. And you're going to have to pay that back or refinance it or hand the car back and pay out any sort of shortfall if there is one. So on this one, just ensure you've got a plan. Understand it, make sure it's explained to you, ask questions if you've got any, and ensure that you have that plan from the beginning of what you're going to do with the vehicle so that it does not come as a surprise in 3 or 4 years' time and you're then wondering what you need to do. Point number 4 is to get a second quote. Now, some employers may require you to go through a certain provider, but in general, I usually see that there's at least 2 options for people. So if you have 2 options, don't just stick with the first quote. Go and get a quote from someone else. Take the time to do that and compare, like we spoke about earlier, that fixed lease cost, the fixed rental amount, because that is going to tell you which one is the cheaper interest rate on this particular car. If there's not another named provider with your employer, ask them the question. So it's always worth asking. Don't just accept them that they say this is who you need to go through, because there are other providers that people can go to. So just ask the question. Don't be afraid to. Everyone's entitled to have a fair, competitive market when it comes to this sort of product. And the last thing is just to run the total cost. This particularly applies to those people who are looking at the non-EV vehicles. Check the full cost of the whole thing. Don't just get caught up in the fact that it is a simple fortnightly or monthly repayment. Really add up the total cost, because you're going to find that there's much larger management fees on a novated lease. Like I said, usually a bit of an inflated interest rate, and you're not going to have the same tax savings as you would on an EV. So when you're comparing a non-EV, get the full cost, what it's going to be to own this vehicle, and then pay off that residual at the end. Compare that with some other options which you might have, which could be paying out of your cash savings if you've got that amount, paying with mortgage redraw and then trying to replenish that amount using a trusted finance broker, using the dealership finance or your bank. With an EV, I think it's a bit simpler, like I said, because it does have those extra benefits. So very likely if you go and do the sums and find a reputable provider giving you a good deal, it's probably going to come out better than some of those other options. But yes, just run the final numbers, see the full cost, and compare your different purchasing options. All right, guys, so that was it. The top 5 things that you need to check before you go and sign your novated lease. And I know it's a whole lot of information, but I hope it helps. And if it has, then I would really appreciate if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. We are growing fairly quickly. I've been away for a little while, so hopefully this video will sort of help people who are new to the channel or who might be coming into the market. So if you are considering an EV vehicle, obviously this Novated Lease information may be very helpful for you. And then if it is, I've done plenty of other breakdowns of purchasing cars with this particular product. So go and check those videos out. Otherwise, guys, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.